So this is another example where I'm just going to do a brief introduction. There's a lot more you can do with f-strings than what I'm going to show you here, but I just wanted to introduce you to the concept. So, what we've been doing when we want to concatenate strings together is using this type of syntax, right, where we have strings or variables that hold strings being strung together with the plus sign, and we might add in some spaces and whatnot. And that works perfectly fine, but that can be kind of involved in a long expression if you're doing a lot of concatenation or whatever. So in Python, there is another way to concatenate strings and do some manipulation on strings for printing purposes or writing back to a variable that can be a little bit more concise and easier to read. And that's the concept of an f-string. Okay, so here's a few examples. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating some variables and then I'm printing out something. And note how now what I'm printing has been formatted or stated differently. So to form an f-string, you start with f, and then in quotes here is what you're wanting to print. And what's neat is you can actually include variables and also variable formatting. So in this first example, I'm feeding the variable x, which is a float number. And note that we don't have to define it or change it to a string within the f string there. And then what occurs here after the colon is some formatting, which basically tells it that it's gonna round off to 2 decimal places. And then in this example, we're printing x. Again, note that the variable is in curly brackets there, and then we're multiplying it by itself here. So we're actually doing some math and returning that as part of the string. And again, you can do the math in the string, and then you don't have to convert it to a string. All right, and in this example, we're doing my favorite color is, and then we're printing it. So, so this is blue in this case, and then lastly, we have my favorite color is, and the same thing, but now we're applying some formatting. So here we're applying the upper method to the string to convert it to uppercase. All right, and then lastly, we're doing this with some. We're using it within a for loop, where we're printing within a for loop. So we have, again, 4 countries here. We're going to iterate through those. So we're using enumerate so that we can get both the index for the element in the list and then also the value, in this case, the country name. So we're for the index and the country in enumerate countries, we're going to print back the index for the specific country. Again, note that that's in curly brackets there since it's a variable is index. So again, in curly brackets, it's a variable. So let me just let's print all these results and see if this makes sense. So the value is 0.12, rounded off to 2 decimal places. And this is 6 times 2 is equal to 36. I guess that should actually be 6 times 6 is equal to 36. That's a dumb math mistake. And then my favorite color is blue. My favorite color is blue uppercase. And then this is the for loop. So we have the index for Belgium is 0. The index for Mexico is 1, so on and so forth. So we're printing the index and the country there within the f string. And we're also, again, we used that method up there. So anyway, you'll see some of this used a good bit in Python. It's a nice, clean way to create print statements. It's a little bit more readable and generally a little bit more concise than just concatenating things together or strings, converting your numbers into strings within the print statement. So this is, again, just a lot more concise.